Because of the nature of wrestling being a pseudo-sport governed by the interests of its audience and its writers' willingness to book accordingly, it remains, more than any other real athletic competition, a place where dreams come true. Unfortunately, not all fantasy scenarios find themselves between the bell. I'm Cy for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 impossible wrestling teases that almost happened. Number 10. Dean Ambrose vs Mick Foley. He might not have been the most technically gifted, but Foley's heart and willingness to sacrifice his body for entertainment inspired a great number of talents. Coming up through the ranks of FCW before he donned the body armour of the Shield was the young Dean Ambrose, a violent psychotic character with little regard for his own safety. If Foley was to put one last guy over, then Ambrose seemed perfect. At WrestleMania weekend in 2012, the two got into a tense war of words that was filmed on a cell phone to blur the lines of reality and WWE's sanitised product. Due to a misunderstanding and some undelivered answering machine calls, the feud almost fell apart early as Ambrose launched into tirades on Twitter that stepped over the line of comfort for Mick. Foley even called the WWE to declare he was pulling out of the angle before the two had a chance to clear the air and re-energise. Foley got right back into the mindset for it and, ahead of their planned SummerSlam bout, went through WWE's physical checks. Ultimately, however, Foley's beaten up body failed the impact test and he had to hang up his working boots for good. Whilst Ambrose found success later that year debuting with the Shield, the potential of the Lunatic Fringe retiring the hardcore legend will always haunt wrestling fans. Number 9. Steve Austin vs Eddie Guerrero. Austin and Guerrero, despite working for the same company for a number of years, only ever had one televised match. It happened on an episode of SmackDown in 2000 and by some matter of coincidence lasted 3 minutes and 16 seconds, oh hell yeah, and was just a straight up squash for old Steve. Around this era, Austin was antsy to find something to really challenge himself with and was a fan of Guerrero's work. A feud was considered in 2001 before Latino Heat was released from the WWE after a DUI incident. Upon his return a year later, the pair picked things back up with a couple of TV segments. After clashing at a badly mic'd up bar in a truly awkward Raw segment, the pair had a physical altercation the following week where Eddie left Austin laid out. The pair began to work house show matches in preparation for their eventual pay-per-view meeting. To add fuel to the fire, Eddie was due to screw Austin out of the King of the Ring tournament by interrupting his match with Brock Lesnar, but infamously, Austin never showed. Even after Austin returned to the company, WWE didn't bother to see if the third time was indeed a charm, and the pair never returned to the story. A shame, since both men were consummate workhorses that could have added an interesting clash between brawling and high-flying styles to their respective resumes. Number 8. Brock Lesnar vs Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt seems to be a wrestling character doomed to repeat himself. As the years go by, it's more apparent than ever. The Eater of Worlds will get red hot due to his out-of-the-box character work, but will find himself booked against unbeatable names and take another big loss. At Survivor Series 2015, the Wyatt family were buried by Undertaker and Kane, and so decided instead to pick on yet another big fish in Brock Lesnar. At the following year's Royal Rumble, the previously eliminated Harper and Rowan climbed back into the ring to help Wyatt throw the beast over the top rope. It was a pretty arbitrary setup to a WrestleMania bout, but as always, the air of "but what if WWE actually commits to Wyatt this time" intrigued a great many. Thanks to Wyatt sustaining a back injury, the storyline was instead rushed to completion at March's Roadblock event. Harper was added to turn the attraction into a handicap, which allowed Wyatt to stand on the outside and not get physically involved whatsoever. In 4 minutes, Brock destroyed Harper and the story was done. Considering that Brock went on to a memorably underwhelming clash with Ambrose at the Show of Shows, Wyatt might have saved himself from further embarrassment. Number 7. Pete Dunne vs William Regal. By attacking Sam Gradwell just as the first episode of the NXT UK tournament was about to go off the air, Pete Dunne positioned himself as the clear heel of the entire proceedings. He may have walked away as the runner-up, but Dunne's heel work had overshadowed everything else. Observing this was William Regal, who was essentially the face of NXT crossing the pond in the first place. Regal's penchant for great reactions showed just how much he reviled Dunne during the tournament and after the fact as the two continued to clash. This was an authority figure feud, but was it one that could have no proper ending? It's largely well documented that Regal's final televised match was against the Swiss Superman Cesaro in a pretty perfect swan song. Except, as revealed in March 2022, that wasn't Regal's final bout. In 2014, in front of about 30 WWE tryout hopefuls who had never seen wrestling before, Regal got into the ring with Sami Zayn for the first and only time. So if he could still go just a little bit, was there ever the possibility for more? It remains unlikely, and this one is certainly the closest to fantasy booking on this list, but considering Regal's respect for Dunne and the story that was playing out on screen, it certainly felt like he was was considering it. Number 6. CM Punk vs Kenny Omega. AEW's September 2021 show The First Dance was a not-so-subtle play on The Last Dance, a mini-series surrounding Chicago Bulls great Michael Jordan. With a mystery signing booked, the possibility of a CM Punk return was spelled out for us all. The Elite were clearly excited that their show had signed the voice of the voiceless. In one particular segment, the group passed around a basketball and decreed that Brandon Cutler cut down the net, promising to break the internet. Here, Omega specifically wore a Cookie Monster shirt, which seemed like nothing until the following week where he donned a tee that read Chick Magnet, the latter being the actual meaning behind the CM in Punk's name, and the former being a joke the Second City Saint had once made about the initialism. When Punk finally arrived, the internet immediately began to salivate about an eventual face-off with Omega, the man once called the best in the world versus a man who had been bestowed the very same title. Instead of heading straight for the gold, however, AEW held this fantasy battle in their back pocket whilst Omega took time off to rehab injuries. However, mere weeks after he returned, a figurative backstage explosion surrounding Punk and the Elite killed any chance of this ever occurring. Whilst the drama of the fallout at All Out was deliciously salacious, the fact that it deprived us of this showdown is still tough to make peace with. Number 5. Sting vs Cody Rhodes. The icon appearing on AEW Dynamite for the first time in December 2020 was a truly special moment. Of all the WCW greats, Sting had been the most loyal and longest holdout when it came to appearing at the company's former rival, so to see him back on TNT almost 20 years later was guaranteed goosebumps. His first appearances saw him share the ring with the likes of Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin. He quickly formed a bond with the latter that makes so much sense that it's still strong even 2 years later. However, it was his interactions with Cody that were truly tantalizing. Cody Rhodes was probably more excited about Sting's hiring than anyone. In multiple interviews over the years, Rhodes had confessed that Sting was his childhood favourite, even more so than his father Dusty. To have the two share a ring together as Cody welcomed Sting to AEW felt like it was the beginning of a dream match. However, talking in interviews, Cody said that he was terrified to answer questions about a potential match with the icon, perhaps worried about the pressures associated with getting in the ring with his childhood hero. This reticence and Cody's eventual jump from AEW to WWE 14 months later makes it a certainty that this showdown will never take place. Number 4. Hulk Hogan vs Steve Austin. So the story goes that WWE approached Austin about facing Hogan at WrestleMania 18 in a clash between the two biggest babyfaces the company had ever booked. However, the Rattlesnake turned down the opportunity because he didn't think that it could deliver, and presumably because he didn't want to lay down for the Hulkster. Of course, Hogan felt the same way about Austin. Instead, The Rock took up the spot in what is often regarded as one of the most noteworthy matches in Mania history. However, that doesn't mean that WWE didn't tease fans with the possibility of their original plan. After Monday Night Raw went off the air on April 22nd, a month after the show of shows, Hogan and Austin sent the crowd home happy and very, very excited. After the Hulkster ripped a can of beer from Austin's hands rather forcefully, the two had a quiet moment where they locked eyes before eventually laughing it off and celebrating together. Unfortunately, this amounted to nothing, with Austin wrapping his career up, for 19 years at least, at the following year's WrestleMania. Hogan and Austin remains one of the biggest what-ifs in wrestling history. Number 3. Becky Lynch vs Trish Stratus. Big Time Bex, ever since she broke out in 2018, has pretty much done everything that the WWE has to offer her. Multiple-time women's champion on both Raw and SmackDown, Royal Rumble winner, and WrestleMania main eventer. She's even crossed a couple of really big names off of her hit list, most noticeably a battle against inspirational women's star Lita at Elimination Chamber 2022. Recognised already as one of the best female stars in WWE history, it's no surprise that names of the past want to work with her. Lita isn't alone, and Attitude Era mainstay Trish Stratus has made it clear that she would love to get back in the ring to face the man. In March 2022, shortly after Elimination Chamber, WWE certainly seemed to be teasing this, as a live event in Toronto saw the 7-time women's champion slap Lynch squarely across the face. Despite Trish speaking to news outlets in the coming months hinting that she'd like to prove she can beat Becky, it never materialised. It certainly didn't help that Lynch had to take time off to recoup an injury that fall. This one is still certainly a possibility, since Stratus is still very much in ring shape and WrestleMania season is just around the corner. Whether or not that slap plays into it remains to be seen. Number 2. Brock Lesnar vs Batista. If you were following the online rumour mill in 2014, it was clear early plans for WrestleMania 30 were all over the place. Most lost in the shuffle was Lesnar, who, despite returning to the company 2 years prior, had yet to sink his teeth into anything worthwhile. Considerations for his opponent included mainstream stars like The Rock and, for the first time ever, the newly returning Dave Bautista. Batista. Technically, the two men had met in the ring way back when they were both finding their feet in OVW, but in the characters that we came to know and love, not so much. Somehow, despite coming up at the same time, the two never clashed. This is largely down to Lesnar being the next big thing on SmackDown, whilst Batista was a mainstay on Raw as part of Evolution. Following both of their departures and subsequent returns to the company, WWE tested the waters the night after the Royal Rumble. With the WWE World Heavyweight Champion Randy Orton and #1 contender Dave Batista in the ring, Heyman demanded from General Manager Brad Maddox that Lesnar get a big fight that night. Despite Heyman's suggestion of Lesnar versus Batista, it didn't happen. Not that night, nor any other. With Batista officially retiring in 2019, this one will remain a match that, despite all odds, never took place. Number 1. Steve Austin versus CM Punk. Despite Stone Cold's beer-drinking, blue-collar stereotype clashing with CM Punk's straight-edge alternative persona, there's no denying the similarities. Both embodied in their best moments the spirit of rebellion. Over his tenure in WWE, Punk teased a showdown with the Rattlesnake numerous times, with fake-out entrance music spots and an on-screen war of words that, whilst merely being a simple backstage segment, was one of the most riveting moments in the company in 2011. The promotion of the WWE 13 video game was another opportunity for the two to trade barbs, as despite the voice of the voiceless being the cover star, Stone Cold's career was the storyline focus of the game. Whilst the question posed was how would Punk fare in the Attitude Era, it quickly became could Stone Cold hang with the CM Punk of today. Sadly, the match never amounted to anything due to Stone Cold's at the time resistance to unretiring and Punk departing the WWE in a blaze of controversy. What's remarkable about this particular dream match is that many fans theorise that it could be back on the table. Austin's 19-year retirement is officially up, and it's clear there's more juice to squeeze from him as a part-timer. And with CM Punk seemingly burning his bridges with AEW, he may well be inclined to return to the previously scorched earth of the WWE if he could have his dream match. If there ever was a perfect retirement match for one or both of them, then this would be it. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Which of these teased dream matches would you have most liked to have seen? And of course, let us know of any others that we missed. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've been Cy for What Culture, and have a good week.